Welcome to Synchronicity. We have another episode of Practical Astrology with S.J. Anderson. We'll be inviting other astrologers too, so if you're an astrologer and want to do this and you have some shit to say about a lunar cycle of 28 days or some other stuff, come on, hit me up. Let's do it. Basically, we're going over astrology. Really, let's be honest. What this really is Noah learns astrology through smarter people than him, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Today, we deal a lot with aspects, specific planets related to energies of deities, and just how this relates to the natal chart, how to use astrology practically, not just as some esoteric modality, how to use it as a map, as a tool. Also understanding astrology's place in your life, that it's a tool, it's something we use, but don't ever forget you're your natal chart, but you're also the whole fucking zodiac, which means you can do whatever you want. There may be a more auspicious time and an easier time to do something, or you may go through the Odyssey like Odysseus and put yourself through a lot of challenges to get things done. And depending on what's going on in linear time and the energies of these planets, which represent deities, which represent qualities, which are in us because we're everything, you may find this stuff relatively useful. So this is SJ is amazing. Go check him out on Twitter. Listen, SJ is an ascending star. That's all I can say. He has a very practical and empirical take on astrology. And he really, right now, he focuses on a lot of things, but the 7 traditional planets are what he likes. And there's something about keeping it simple that I think is incredibly powerful. And below the surface, his wisdom, what he doesn't let on is just, you hear it come out in dribs and drabs, but man, he is in the flow with this stuff. He's really living it, which is amazing to see. So go check him out. Twitter is where I connect with him, but I know he has other stuff in the works. 2020 should be a fun year for him and everyone connected to him. So go check that out. Rate and review this podcast. We're going to be incorporating more things like this. I want to do more regular features about astrology and some of the more divinatory arts. And, I'm trying to balance this with music and life. Eli just started a new school, a Waldorf school. Want to hear something weird about imagination? It occurred to me after the fact, and this will happen a lot when you do imaginal acts. You'll realize, oh my God, I did it, and then it happened, and now I know it. Oh my gosh. Like 7 years ago, Eli's 3 and change. So way before I even knew I wanted to have kids, really. I was like reading Rudolf Steiner, and I was like, this dude is really awesome. I just started reading him. He's a real hardcore mystic, 20th century mystic. And basically, I found out he was the father of biodynamic farming and founded these schools called Waldorf schools. And they're pretty fucking amazing. And I was like, if I have a kid, he's going to go to a Waldorf school. And lo and behold, 10 minutes from our house, he's at the Waldorf school. It's a magical place. A big part of what they do is you have to help out at the school. You take care of the grounds, there's animals, there's gardens. It's just like a community, and it's based around the children, and the kids are so smart. They teach the parents as much as the other way around, and it's just awesome. And it's a nice little template. I'm not saying you have to go to Waldorf schools, but it's a nice template for how to be in the world when you're kind of just loving everything. So I don't know. It's cool. Shit's awesome. Imagination rules. Go check out the Mega Mix if you want to. I know on podcasts you can speed things up. A lot of people do that. I already talk kind of fast most of the time. I don't know if there's an option to speed things down or speed things down. Holy shit. Slow things down. But that Mega Mix, because Alexis told me, she's like, you're going really fast in the Mega Mix. I'm like, well, people can pause. So maybe I'll do another Mega Mix at some point with more techniques, and I'll try to talk more slowly. You got to catch the wave, though. Moves kind of fast these days. All right, that's it. Without further ado, here's episode 2 of Practical Astrology with S.J. Anderson. let's get
Sweet.
started, man. I'm excited to talk astrology with you this week or this month, I should say, this lunar month, whenever we last spoke, because I've learned a lot since
Okay.
we last spoke. And I still don't know way more than I know, but I now understand conjunctions. I understand planets and asteroids and their relationship to various energies related to deities from the Roman and the primary. I guess they're what, like most of the planet names we use the Roman names. Is that right for the planets?
I think Greek or Roman, but I think
Yeah.
maybe the Roman is more the Latin name is more popular during our lifetime. Just because I think the Latin is something that was in wider use when we were kids, maybe, but the Greek has had a revival because
Yeah.
of some of the translations, and so a lot of people will go back to the Greek names.
That's cool. I like that because that's what I've been doing. It's really cool. Basically, I didn't understand, and like I also now I have this. I like this app, Astro Future, and it shows me my natal chart and like a picture of the transits and like where all the planets are and where they line up in the signs. And I delved more into houses when I'm looking at charts and stuff. And I don't know, like it just a lot more started to click. But the biggest thing for me is I had a reading done by someone and she basically was like, yeah, you should. She was very electional about it. She's like, this transit is taking place in about 3 years. This is a big deal. And she started saying all this stuff. And this is someone I trust a lot, and she started talking about certain like energies like Lilith and Athena, and she's like, you should research these things. And then when I started researching them, they led to like crazy synchronicities and all these other things. So I mean, my eyes are even more opened to the astrological world. But I'd love to hear what's going on currently. We have a full moon tonight here in Pisces, right?
Yeah, full moon here in about, I'd say, 4 hours, maybe a
Cool.
little under 4 hours in Pisces. And yeah, I think it's a real tangible energy. I know on Twitter, a lot of people are talking about feeling it. And I certainly have been feeling this quite intensely. There's a lot of Virgo energy. Virgo is the sign opposite Pisces. And so a lot of the times we talk about signs as an axis of signs because they're on that same, there's a sign and then there's the sign opposite the sign. So they come in pairs. And Virgo and Pisces are on that same axis. And
Hmm.
right now we have four planets in Virgo, including the sun.
Yeah.
And of course, every full moon has the moon opposite the sun.
Yes.
And so you're really highlighting both of those signs. And they're mutable signs, which means changeable or transition signs. And so often these are signs of shifting energy, of moving out from one place and going to another place. These signs mark the seasonal transitions. And so I think that's where that signification comes from. But, we're moving out from summer, transitioning into fall. And
Yeah.
so, this comes with football season. It comes with going back to school. I mean, there's a lot of things that are shifting
Yeah.
during this time of year. But yeah, I'm definitely feeling the energy. Big Virgo Pisces energy, and Neptune is in Pisces. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of talk of that Neptune confusion really being highlighted. People suggesting, staying at home is okay. I've seen a lot of astrologers I follow talking about rest and just it's okay to do nothing, and that's kind of where I've been at.
Yeah. That Neptunian energy, it's been very weird. And I think, I'm just looking at my little app here. It also looks like Venus and Mercury are about to move out of Virgo into Libra, which is interesting too, because there's, like you said, there's so much jammed up, including it looks like Lilith. Is that Lilith? I don't know. There's something. What is the one with like it looks like an asterisk and a circle below it? I don't know.
So I'm not someone who's gone too much into Lilith. Let me get up. Um, Sorry, I just tried to open some software. Let me just get
No,
up
no, no
my.
problem.
Okay, I just don't want it to mess to shake with the Skype here. Let me get up. Let's see where Lilith is. I have a app on the phone that I really like,
I think, yeah, I
and
use Astrofuture. I love it. Um,
I I've been doing Astro Gold, which is kind of
Ooh.
some industry standard. You know, Solar Fire is kind of the
Ooh.
industry standard software, and that company makes this app called Astro Gold
Hold on, I'm getting it
for,
right now. I'm getting it right
yeah,
now.
I highly recommend it. It's just the thing about Astro Gold and Solar Fire is they use the Swiss ephemeris, which means
Oh.
that they license data. It's expensive from JPL and from I think it's JPL data licensed from I'm not sure the name of the other company, but basically it's about the data. And so you have this really precise data that goes into producing the images that you're looking at. Um, yeah, Lilith has like a it's like a moon with a plus symbol below the moon.
Yeah,
And I
yeah. I think isn't it in Virgo
it's
right
right
now? And
it's right in Pisces. No,
oh,
I
it's
mean
in
I'm looking
Pisces. It's in
at
Pisces. Okay, I'm in
Black
the
Moon Lilith. Again, this is not I'm not an expert at, so I'm really
Oh,
hesitant to
I
even
see.
talk
Yeah,
about
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Oh, is yeah.
asteroids are just not Black Moon Lilith is actually I think a hypothetical point as well. It's not a real point, and I'm not sure how it's calculated. So
Yeah.
that would be a little research.
Well, the reason I bring that up, even though it's not where I thought it was, is it was pointed out to me on my natal chart that it's basically at my nadir, right? Like this, the what do they call it? The IC.
Yeah.
And basically, she was like, listen, this is the deepest part of your unconscious. This is what this represents. And like Lilith is like the raging divine feminine. So I was like, all right, I got to start researching this stuff. The reason I got very interested in asteroids is because I really like to look at the qualities and energies that cultures ascribe to these celestial bodies, because I find that that energy, like, let me ask you this. When you say, very strong Pisces and Virgo energy, what qualities do you ascribe to each of those signs related to like tonight's full moon and pending
Yeah,
moon?
so that's so for me, the signs, the thing when I think about a sign, that the first thing I go to is which planet rules the sign.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
cool, cool.
And we have different types of rulership. So domicile rulership is thought of maybe as the most strongest form of rulership or the strongest form of rulership traditionally. Um, and that's, the planet, each planet is assigned to one or two signs as their home. We think about it like this is their home. They own these homes. Okay.
Right, right.
And so that's the number one place that I go to when I think about the significations of a sign. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. Virgo is ruled by Mercury.
Oh,
And and so right away we can start kind of mining the significations of Jupiter or Mercury. Jupiter is a planet of expansion, right? People talk about if it's corrupted, maybe overexpansion, too much of things.
is that Zeus and Hermes too, like the related
Absolutely.
deities? Okay, cool.
Absolutely. That's the Greek Zeus and the Greek Hermes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
cool, cool, cool.
And whereas Mercury is a planet of particularity, of analysis of, and especially in Virgo, people think about it because Virgo is an Earth sign, and so you have kind of the analysis, the mental that comes from Mercury, but used in relation to Earth. And so people will often talk about Virgo as like people want to clean, they want to
Mm-hmm.
organize, they want, so, but it comes from the Mercury influence, the mercurial influence. And then so the second place I would go to first to analyze the sign is the element.
Mm.
And each sign is assigned an element. There's 4 elements, 12 signs. So there's 3 signs per element. And so Pisces is a water sign and
Right.
Virgo is an earth sign, and they're both feminine. So then the signs are also assigned a gender.
Right. Water
Um,
and earth are the feminine,
yep,
and fire and air would be the masculine.
absolutely, that's right. And so then the third thing that I would go to, and aside from rulership, the other 3 are kind of mixed together. I don't really say one's more important than the other, but the last is the mode of a sign. We call it the mode. That's the modality. And you have cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And The cardinal signs are the signs of initiation, of change, of a new energy, and it's maybe the strongest form of that energy, the initial birth of that energy. Fixed signs are where that energy is the most fixed, where it's been stable already for a season, for 1 month, and now it comes in its fullness.
I see.
So like Leo, for example, is the height of the summer. It's when the sun is at its most hot. And then mutable energy is that transition period where it kind of overlaps to it's an overlapping sign. They call it bicorporeal in the sense that it has two bodies
Yeah.
from one season to the next. And so that's what I look at. The other thing I will say about that is that rulership, there's other forms of rulership too, which I think are quite important when analyzing a sign. So you have domicile rulership. Some signs have an exaltation ruler.
Yeah.
Every sign has a triplicity rulers, which is a group of 3 planets that rule that sign. And those are the triplicity rulers I also bring in when I analyze a sign. And it'll tell you just kind of what other planetary energies are influencing the sign. But yeah, so for me, I think the mutability part of this is really what I'm feeling. It's a transition period, and I really and like again, I think we see that manifested in things like school. Like here where I am, everybody's just going back to school. Everybody's the schedules are in upheaval. The summer, people were doing a certain thing, and now they've had to change their lives in a pretty tangible way.
Yeah, for sure. Do I have this right that Mercury both rules and is exalted in Virgo?
That's correct. Yeah, it's the only planet that's exalted in the same sign that it rules.
So interesting. Virgo is really having a moment these past few weeks. There's like everything is joined in it. It's a good opportunity to learn. I like what you're saying about the energies too. I mean, I felt I refer to today as like kind of a reflection day. It felt like there is kind of this exactitude of introspection that I've been noticing, and I've also been able to kind of connect with the way I used to feel before I kind of stabilized a different mode of consciousness. And I'm attributing that mainly to the water sign of Pisces and just kind of like really getting deep in those feelings. And yeah, it feels very much transitional, and it feels kind of like, at least for me today, Friday the 13th, like a very profoundly feminine energy thing. And it just feels like this is a glimpse of the past, and we're having an opportunity to kind of reconcile and deal with it. And I think we can feel the future creeping its way in and unfolding. And I don't know, it's kind of like a nostalgic period is what it feels like for me. And it does seem like staying at home is, my sun sign's Cancer, so I'll always be up for that. But it does really, today has been a very unique day amongst many unique days for me over the past few weeks and months. So yeah, there's the full moon always gets it going, huh?
Always, yeah. And the other night, I was not last night, but the night before, I just couldn't sleep.
Oh, me neither, dude. It was crazy. I was like, what the fuck? There must be a full moon. Then I looked and I was like, oh, it's right up, coming right up. Oh, I know.
Yeah, I noticed too. I get a lot of messages from people during this time, like friends, and even on social media. I'll get more contact, more people reaching out. So I definitely feel a sense of being overwhelmed a little bit. I mean, it's fine. I can handle it, but it's just there's like, wow, a lot more people to follow up with and engage with.
Yeah.
So there's that going on, and then at the same time, you've got, like you're saying, the sense of memory. I think the moon, there's a quality of memory, I think, that comes with the moon. I mean, the moon, it is our home. It represents our home in astrology. It represents the mother, and for me, the mother figure is very much about memory, because as we grow older, we come out from the womb, we go into the world.
Right.
And so there's really a sense of that past. I think there's a nostalgia for the protective layer that is the mother. And there really is, I mean, I think a visceral nostalgia for the ultimate protection, which is the womb, where you have the food coming right into through your belly button.
Yeah.
And you have to do nothing. It's
Yeah.
the oceanic bliss. What did Freud call it? Um,
The
and so
ocean of bliss. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's I do think there's something primal about it, and yeah, the femininity is really high right now. That feminine energy, which is
Yeah. It's
passive.
enveloping. Yeah. But it's
Yeah,
also enveloping, right? I mean, it's passive, but it's enveloping. And I heard my friend Jessa, who I just had on, talk about this. And I don't think it was a recent one she did on her podcast, The Mormon and the Method, where she was talking about how the feminine, most people have tapped into that there's a strong rebalancing that's going on. And this starts with a very large surge of feminine energy. And, feminine energy also has a tendency to consume and envelop and basically take over. And this is a period where if you're trying to stabilize the masculine, you got to like be on your toes because this stuff is just a wash. And then I'm looking here also that Neptune also rules Pisces. And you mentioned that it was in Pisces right now, which is a really profound. I really opened up to kind of the Neptunian, you know, underworld, like ocean, like we're talking about oceanic oceans of bliss. Like Neptune was Poseidon. That's why the sign kind of, that's how I remembered what Neptune looks like. It looks like the trident and planet wise. And, you know, for me, the ocean represents the unconscious. It represents the aspect of ourselves, like, we're the wave and the ocean. The individuated sense is the wave, everything else is the ocean. And I really feel like that is a strong kind of pull right now. And it might be unfamiliar for a lot of people because, like, when you go into the beach, you don't want to get sucked in by the undertow because you'll go deep into the ocean, which is like, typically not good for a human being. But psychically, it does feel like the time to kind of get familiar, um, with at least what's going on for me for the next few months. What else is going on astrologically, in the coming 28 days? And then also, we're getting closer to the last quarter of the year. What are some themes that you're looking at? Is there stuff going on with Jupiter and other things? What's going on?
yeah. Well, so I will say when we talk about ocean, traditionally that's signified by Saturn.
Ooh,
And Saturn is the ocean because it's the farthest reaches of the sky, the slowest moving
interesting.
planet. And so it was considered the last sphere before the sphere of the fixed stars. So it was the farthest planetary sphere away from us.
Gotcha.
And so therefore it was like the ocean, it's far away from us. And Saturn, there's great risk that comes with ocean journeys. You often read in the source materials that traveling is dangerous on the ocean. And so I think there is this kind of fear element that comes with diving into that deep unseen as of the ocean, as you were kind of referring. That's what I was thinking of as you were talking there.
Yeah,
And
that's what I
Saturn,
was thinking of too. You got to be a dolphin though. You can't be a human. You're gonna die. You
yeah,
can't live out there. If you're a dolphin, go chill down there. It's all good.
for sure. And I one way to examine the skies, we just take a look. We can say which planets are in feminine signs and which planets are in masculine signs, and just get a measurement of the energy. And if you're just looking at the seven traditional, that's kind of my main lens. I
Yeah.
will go deeper. I will check out Neptune. I will check out Pluto. But if we bring in the three modern outer planets, Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus, all of those are also in feminine signs.
Yeah.
So, but just the seven traditional, you have every planet is in a feminine sign. So 6 of the 7 are in feminine signs right now.
Oh.
Whereas if you add the 3 outer, you've got, what is that, 9 of 10. And so we are dealing with this heavy feminine energy. I will say though, to go further and answer your other question, that's going to change today. So today I'm in the morning now. By the time I go to sleep tonight, we'll have 2 planets enter Libra.
Yes.
Yeah.
I see we have Mercury and Venus. Is that right?
Yeah, and they just conjoined last night. So it's kind
Oh,
of,
nice.
I think that's why I felt a bit, I was actually starting to feel better and just more kind of grounded as that conjunction happened.
On a
I really,
Friday too. Nice on the Venus day. That's nice.
yeah, and it's sort of adding just that Venusian. I mean, Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, both by exaltation and domicile. Venus is a benefic. And so as they sort of kiss there, right, in those final degrees, it just like a little sweetness was added.
That's cool. I like that. What?
Yeah.
How long
So
does?
just,
Yeah, no, you go.
okay, yeah. So I'm just saying that you enter Libra, and by the time we get to early October, we will have had 3 planets in Libra for most of September, or for the second half of September, because the Sun will enter Libra in about 6 days, 7 days,
Right.
and join them. Mars enters Libra, I believe, on the 3rd of October. Let me get that exact here. Right around the 3rd of October. And so, as Mercury leaves Libra, Mars will enter Libra. So I think the whole time, most of Libra season will include 3 planets there, which added to Jupiter and Sagittarius means we'll have 4 of the 7 in masculine signs. So I think the energy is about to get quite masculinized. And I like what you said about this as a kind of a pause moment, where we're kind of preparing now for maybe the rest of the year, because we're not going to have this kind of feminine energy for a while. And the other thing is that the big other thing that's going to be happening is Mars will be making a square to Saturn. And we could talk about aspects at some point, but that's one of the more difficult aspects.
No, let's talk about aspects right now. I want to learn more about them because that's what I know the least about right now. Well, but before we get to aspects, I have one quick question. It's really easy to answer. How long does Jupiter stay in Sagittarius for?
So Jupiter is about 1 year per sign. 1 year per sign.
Okay.
It's a 12-year cycle to go through the whole zodiac. And Jupiter entered Sagittarius last year, and it will be entering. That's the other big story. You asked about Jupiter and Saturn in the last quarter of the year.
Yeah.
There's a big story coming up for both Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn will go direct before on the 18th, so in 4 days, which means it's dead still in the sky right now, and it's going to be moving into direct motion. So it'll be moving forward again in the zodiac, making progress, and we'll have all 7 planets direct. And so I think that's also again more of a masculine energy, where you have movement forward.
Yeah. Oh, this is cool.
Yeah, and then the other thing is Jupiter will enter Capricorn. So he'll be going from Sagittarius, his home, to Capricorn, his sign of fall or depression.
Oh, fuck.
And he'll be there for a year, and co-present with Saturn. And so this is actually, I think, the biggest story of the next year.
Yeah,
is the Jupiter Saturn dance in Capricorn. And the real question is, how much will Jupiter mitigate maybe some of the issues? I mean, that can often arise with Saturn and Jupiter coming together. It's the start of a new 20-year cycle.
He's there to help. What does Saturn represent deity-wise? Who's Saturn?
Kronos.
Oh shit.
Kronos. Yeah,
shit. A Titan?
Father Time.
Fucking A. Oh, okay, so that's so 20 years of that? Oh, people are in for such a trip. Holy shit.
Well, 20 years, it takes 20 years between the meeting of Saturn and Jupiter, between meetings of the two.
And how long do they meet for, though? A year?
They'll meet for a year because
only 1 year. Only 1 year. Oh,
depending on how you,
Oh, dude, 2020 is going to be so fucking
2020
nuts.
is going to be nuts. And 2020, it's going to culminate on the 21st of December, 2020, on the solstice, where they will actually perfect that meeting, and it'll be in Aquarius.
What does that mean, perfect? That means like they conjunct, or?
Yeah, exact conjunction.
Wow.
So you perfect, aspects get perfected when they become exact by degree.
Hold on, I just want to look at my Aquarius stuff. Oh man, this is nuts. How long does Neptune stay in signs for?
I think about 12 or about 14 years.
Okay, I know I'm going outside of your 7, but I just
no, it's fine. No, we can go outside of it. I mean, I do use those planets. It's just maybe not in the same way as a modern astrologer.
Right.
But I like to check in with them. I think that when they change signs, it can be very important. I think, especially from a mundane astrological perspective, I'm really interested in some modern astrological work that shows that they have a dramatic effect on the in the mundane. For example, Uranus ingressed into Taurus in 2010,
Mm,
and we had the Fukushima
mm.
earthquake, tsunami, and then the Fukushima incident almost immediately. So you can sometimes see very tangible manifestations. Others talk about so Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto were opposing each other when 9/11 happened,
Right. They're
fairly
together,
close.
and they're together right now, basically.
And
Yeah.
then, yeah, at the square, which is 90 degrees. So just quickly, a circle has 360 degrees. The
Yeah.
ecliptic has 360 degrees. And so we can measure where the planets are by analyzing how many degrees they are from each other along the circle of the ecliptic.
I see.
And the opposition would be 180 degrees. The conjunction is 0 degrees or 360 degrees, but the square is 90 degrees. And so during the financial crash in 2008, the Saturn Pluto square was happening. They were in a 90-degree relationship roughly. And so this is what these kind of mundane astrologers that really focus on Pluto are saying. Well, we've got Saturn and Pluto coming together
Yeah.
in January 12th of 2020 to
Oh,
start the,
Saturn will catch up to. How quickly does
yeah.
Pluto move?
So Pluto is strange because it can move through a sign as quickly as like maybe 12, 13 years, or as long as like 30 to 35 years. It doesn't have a consistent orbit, a continuous orbit. It changes speed.
Who's Pluto associated with?
So the modern astrologers there's debates,
Yeah.
but they talk about, let's see, the god of the underworld. What's his name?
Hades?
Hades.
Yeah.
Hades, the underworld. Others, I think, yeah. So it's more of this underworld energy, this going to the transformation, death,
Review.
generation.
Yeah, yeah.
What you might like this. I mean, a lot of modern astrologers ascribe significations to those three planets by looking at what was happening at the time of their discovery. And so Uranus, what's happening right around the revolutions in France, Uranus was discovered around the time of the revolutions in France and America in the late 18th century. So people talk about revolution as being maybe one of its significations. There was discoveries. People say technological discovery in Uranus.
And that's in Libra. That's in Libra right now.
Uranus just ingressed into Taurus.
Taurus, rather. Taurus,
yeah.
right. Taurus, of course.
And that's about a 7-year run for
cool.
Uranus.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, people, Uranus and Taurus, 38 through like 33 through 40 or something like this. So 1933 through 1940. So it's kind of the Great Depression and sort of building up towards the explosions that happened in the early 1940s in terms of global conflict. I by the way, I never like to say anything about wars coming or anything. I'm a person of peace. I like to project peace and try to manifest that energy.
Yeah.
So when I make these analogies,
you know, when you say war, though, like it's the same way. Like when I've been doing the tarot stuff, like, if you pull the Death card, if you pull the 9 of Swords, the 10 of Swords, like these cards are like brutal looking. The Tower. I really find it useful to look at things not literally as though wars are going to repeat or be likely, or even financial crises, but I would look at it as potential ways of like internal wars expressing inside of you, or internal lack of wealth in one area. It really doesn't have to be externalized if that is kind of feeling like too projection-y. Like I appreciate the astrologers who make hardcore projections based on energies, and I think that's really useful. But for me, most of this stuff is just a map for energies that are present and shared, but how they impact me. Because I notice on like a day like today, if I didn't know anything about a full moon, let alone in Pisces and these other things, like after the fact, like I just been like, why do I feel so weird? Like this is a weird feeling day. And so that's how I tend to look at it. So when you say wars and stuff and reference things in the past, especially things you and I weren't alive for, I look at them more as kind of like energetic patterns and not like as some doomed or fated to repeat. That's just not how I view reality. So if you're a person of peace and so am I, and we believe that, and people tap into their real power, that can start to be expressed in the world regardless of what, happened in the past. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and I think regardless of what happens with governments, I mean, I can ask myself, how am I making peace, in between my own ears and with the people around me, even if there is turmoil with governments. And it's a tough one because, if we're just looking at mundane astrological prediction, which a lot of people use these outer planets for almost exclusively, or not almost exclusive, but it's common in the field of mundane astrology to actually remove the inner planets and only really examine like Jupiter, Saturn, and then Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto.
The big ones with like
The-
a
the-
slow moving.
yeah,
Yeah. That makes sense.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, I conceptually, I don't have a problem with it. But for those folks, I mean, folks that are in the business of talking about war, because war happens. We're human beings. Maybe we're in an age where the technology, and this is my real hope. If I have to set everything aside, I just hope the technology will kind of flatten things, where the wars can be fought with words and with digital, pulses. Like, I'm fine with that. Like, let's have like info wars and maybe even trade wars that are, I'm cool with that. Let's keep the bombs out of it. But I think we can even read it to be manifesting in ways that aren't so dramatic as the 20th century. And I think the 20th century wars, I mean, this idea of the war to end all war, that's what they called World War One. Maybe both of those wars together, theoretically, we have a settling of that need for massive destruction in that way.
Yeah.
That's my hope. And I know there's conflicts. I don't mean to minimize people that are affected in war
of course
currently.
Not. Well, war is a complicated subject that I highly recommend people deal with their own personal inner wars before trying to look at too much, because it'll trip you up real fucking bad. It's like, and you don't disregard it. Like like you said, you and I are both acutely aware of lots of things that lead to horrible consequences for lives, but I've just learned you got to take care of your own shit first. And then once you do that and you're feeling like you're bearing witness to stuff, you can try to actually make the change. But I do want to talk about squares and stuff. Like what is the importance of these positions related to, what are they called? You had a name for when things.
So aspects. And then aspects, they perfect. So aspect just means this geometric relationship between 2 points on a circle. And traditionally, certain geometric relationships are seen as more beneficial, as easier, as actually productive, of maybe ease and goodness, whereas other relationships are seen as more adversarial and more just difficult, more challenging. And it's based on optics theory. It's based on like Hellenistic and Greek ways of thinking about optics. And the opposition, when someone's coming right at you, this is seen as the most difficult aspect. When someone's not at a 90-degree relationship, this is maybe the second most difficult. Think about two people colliding, like coming right at your side.
Right, perpendicular.
Yeah, perpendicular collision. And then you have the triangle, which is made by a 120-degree relationship between 3 points on a circle. The triangle would be maybe the best aspect in terms of providing ease, benefit, assistance, comfort. And you have in the like Pythagorean model the tetractys, which is a triangle, right? And so you have these kind of sacred symbols that are triangular, this might make sense. But it was optically, you can see something maybe at an 120-degree angle. Like think about a cross-country team, you run maybe not right next to each other, but maybe on someone's flank, in a way where you can support them. And then the sextile is 60 degrees, so half of the triangle, of the degree that's needed to produce a triangle, and that would produce a 6-sided figure.
Gotcha.
You would have like two triangles together. And that's and in tarot you have that as well, especially from the Golden Dawn tradition. They like the sixes. The sixes are seen as kind of the most, I guess, free flowing of that suit of cards. So you would have like the six of pentacles. I forgot the names that Crowley gave them. They're not off the top of my head. But those all of those cards are quite good. The sixes, even in her images, Pamela Smith, they're all pleasant
Yeah,
images.
the sixes are good. The six of cups is the only one. I was just doing a reading today where there are flowers coming out of all of the
Yeah.
cups. It's a boy, an older boy, both children giving a younger girl a cup with a flower in it. It's very interesting. I was pointing it out to her. I was like, if you look at all the other ones, they're all open cups and nothing's in them, but except for the Queen of Cups where it's covered. But it's a very interesting. The tarot's fucking cool, man. And I know it's also associated with astrology too. Like I've been trying to do some research on it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation and people kind of just like ascribing, and like that's cool if you're doing an oracle thing, but there is a strong connection. Like there are astrological figures on a lot of the cards and the cardinal symbols and signs rather, and it's just this stuff is all connected in a way that when you really start looking at it, it's like, holy shit. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the traditional trumps have a lot of astrological symbols. I think that the correspondences that a lot of people talk about were developed in the late 19th century with the Golden Dawn. They came in and sort of did a lot of creative work to give astrological significance to the cards, to the 78 cards. Even the significate or the correspondences with the Hebrew alphabet come, I think, in the 18th century. In France, you have people like this guy Attila. There's others that they begin to start making correspondences to the cards, and that's fine. I think that's really, really useful. I mean, we talked about earlier. Someone told you about Black Moon Lilith, and then now you're seeing these synchronicities.
Yeah, objectively in external reality. Like I met someone and her daughter's name was Lilith, and the other person she told me or deity to look into was Athena, and she had a crazy an Athena story, and then owls were popping up everywhere in my life. Like it was just like weird shit. And like you begin to see, I mean, what I really believe now is just so nutso, but I really believe that these deities that we looked at, they built statues of and got appropriated in different ways, like stable imaginal acts create reality. And I think that people really believed in these deities and maybe even had personal experiences with them when they were taking psychedelic drugs, like Kaikion and Soma and stuff. So I believe these deities are not just kind of like made up personifications of energies. I think like they actually have a real impact and they're not just arbitrarily related. Like I was reading that Ceres, which is another celestial body, was actually a feminine precursor to Dionysus or Dionysus. How do you say it? Dionysus? Dionysus?
I think
Dionysus, yeah. So, but she was basically associated with the same things before him, wine, and then like all this fertility stuff. And then Juno is Hera. So like there's this whole interesting energetic thing that we have a blueprint for. And I really think if people get into that and attach that to these astrological kind of other aspects of astrology and the houses and the conjunctions and these aspects. So squares, I don't want to get too off track from this because I'm interested and I need to learn it. Squares are inauspicious or difficult energy. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some modern astrologers will tell you that the dynamic, what they call the dynamic or hard aspects, and those are the aspects that happen along that axis of either 180 degrees or 90 degrees. You can make a cross on a circle by drawing that line, and that's called the axis of angularity, as you might refer to it like that, or hard aspects. And they will say that the hard aspects are actually when that dynamic change is produced because they are challenging. the idea is that we don't really change unless there's difficulty. And I think we can see that just as a rule of nature. I mean, even a flower, as it buds, it has to break through that encasing, you know. And so while difficult, they tend to also mark moments of great shifting and change.
Right.
And so I mean, my chart's chock full of really difficult close oppositions. So so you know, I embrace them, and I think energetically I'm quite comfortable with them because I was born under them. You know,
Right.
but yeah, they can be uncomfortable and difficult, and that's why this summer people had such challenging time because Mars and Saturn were opposite each other with the lunar nodes. And then these eclipses happened where the sun was opposite the moon, Mars and Saturn were opposite each other, and there was this alignment of oppositions that were really difficult.
Right.
You know, but I think people had great change. I mean, I talked to a lot of folks whose lives shifted, and they were birthed into their new realities, and they arrived safely. You know, no worse for the wear, and so yeah, I tend to embrace them, embrace the energies. Trust me, I like when you have soft aspects, is what the trine and sextile might be called.
Yeah.
Because they are more stable. You know, think about like you're having a nice vacation, nothing, no upheaval. You're in a good groove. You know, you're having a stable time in life, and stability can be wonderful. It can be highly productive. You know.
Right.
But
right.
And then the conjunction is a mixture. So it's a mixture of energies. And that's just where you have, generally, I think of them as more positive than negative. But it can depend on the condition of the planets, like so where they are in the zodiac. But generally, when planets kind of mix together, they're sharing things. And, you know, you take on something from one planet, maybe you give something. But there's debates on a lot of this stuff. But that's kind of a general outlay. The other thing about the aspects is that, so traditionally aspects are based on sign. So there's what we call sign-based aspects. And then a degree-based aspect was also important, but the sign-based aspect took on a greater prominence. And I tend to use sign-based aspects because the aspect theory is based on the relationship between signs and signs sharing the same element, same gender.
I see.
So when you divide the zodiac into 12 signs, the signs that are 120 degrees away from each other are all of the same element. So the Earth sign Virgo, you go 120 degrees from any point in Virgo, you will be in the Earth sign Capricorn.
You go 100, I see, and then you'll be in Taurus.
Yeah. So you can draw that triangle.
I see.
Oh. And sextile, so you would have all of the feminine signs are a 60-degree relationship from the next feminine sign. And so you go from Virgo to Cancer, Cancer to Taurus, Taurus to Pisces, Pisces to Capricorn, Capricorn to Scorpio. And that's where you have the sextile. That's where you get the 6. So it's, you know, and you see it in nature. Like I'm looking at your Skype my own money. Yeah. Well, the flower of life. No, it's the synchronicity image that new image.
The Ramin did. Yeah.
And the flower of life is that sacred geometry. You use the compass, and you just, as you make circles, overlapping circles, you get this wonderful 6-sided image, or that's the seed of life, I guess. The flower of life is comprised of many seeds of life together.
Yeah. I have that on my tarot box, is the carving of the flower of life. This shit is all connected. It's really kind of the best. And I like that we have this tool with astrology to get insight. I want to ask one last question of you about this stuff is, so when you're sitting down or when you're waking up, right, as you have this morning where you are, what are the like initial things that you're looking at to determine? Because I see your tweets and like I always just find them so incredibly insightful. Like what are you looking at when you wake up related to where everything is in the sky?
So for me, I usually work several days out. I mean, I try to stay ahead of this stuff because it can be too overwhelming if you're
Yeah, it makes
trying
sense.
to analyze something fresh just on the morning of an event. So I'm often several weeks or months, not usually several months, but more maybe a month or two out, where
Oh,
I've kind of taken
interesting.
a look at the skies. I know some of the bigger alignments that are coming because I do publish these delineations on Twitter. That's a lot of work, and so I have to have that prepared somewhat before I sit down to like write a delineation. Usually one or two aspects every, probably 4 or 5 a week happen,
Mm.
and I write a little inspired kind of delineation
Yeah, I
of that
love
of
it.
that aspects before they perfect. So I'm not really doing that. I do write those the day before, sometimes the day of. But I've prepared a lot of it beforehand, and I can tell you kind of those general energies without having that specific text written. But yeah, I wake up in the morning. I mean, I will have known like today. I know about Libra season coming. I know that that's starting today. I know that the big thing that's kind of on my mind is the Mars Saturn square, because that's the
Mm.
two difficult planets in that difficult aspect. And so I've known about this for a while, and I feel like that's what we're kind of building up to energetically. It's not going to happen until October. It's not going to perfect until October, but
Saturn is Kronos. That's the craziest thing you told me because that really like I'm telling you, if you look at this through the mythological lens, when Saturn and Zeus get close together, we know what happened. It's
yeah,
not wasn't good for Kronos.
wasn't
So
good for Kronos. No.
so Zeus is there and he was in his home of is that his home Sagittarius? He
So
rules
Zeus,
Sagittarius.
yeah,
Yeah, he
Zeus has been great in Sagittarius, and a lot of guys on Twitter, or not a lot, but a few, they've been talking about like the only thing saving us has been Jupiter and Sagittarius.
yeah.
That's kind of been keeping everything afloat, propped up, and Jupiter
Yeah.
goes into Capricorn, and we're going to be losing that's real stable kind of tent pole that
Yeah.
we've had. And so I think things. I mean, if you really want to ask me, and I want to go back to your other question too in a second,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
once Jupiter hits Cap, man, I think we're in for like there could be some dynamism in terms of like changes where a lot of the things that are on the table might get some form of resolution by the time we get into Saturn, and by the time let's say Jupiter enters Pisces, and that will happen in late 2021 and into really 2022. By the time Jupiter enters Pisces in 2022, I think that a lot of this stuff will have been brought to resolution. And let's hope it's as easy as possible. But things like, think about it, we got an election. I mean, right away, that's going to be super intense in America. That's going to be happening in 2020, November. Okay, Jupiter
Well, in November
and
I was just looking at November because I have a trip to LA and I was looking ahead because you got me thinking. It looks like we actually have some decent stuff in November. It's not the worst. Like we have um Venus is in Sagittarius. We have in Scorpio the sun. What is that? Mercury. I don't know. It's good for me. I'm a Scorpio ascendant and Sagittarius moon, so I don't know about other people, but for me, it's not so bad. But Jupiter's still there. It's so interesting. I love this stuff so much, man. It's so fucking cool.
yeah, it's really excellent. It's really good. Yeah, and you raised up a really good point. It's worth mentioning here is that we can look at the transits in the sky, and they are saying something about how difficult a moment of time is.
Yeah.
But really, what you have to do is see those transits against your natal chart,
Yeah, you
and
really do.
because you really have to, because like mutable signs for me, they're not really prominent in my chart. And so like, yeah, this Sagittarius, Jupiter and Sagittarius, good, don't get me wrong, but I'm all about cardinal signs. That's where
Right,
my chart
right.
is very cardinal and fixed. And so like this summer when you had this energy in the cardinal signs with the Saturn Mars opposition, I was really hit much harder than I'm getting hit right now. However,
Right.
people that are mutable prominent, and that's if your ascendant is an immutable sign, or if your sun or moon is an immutable sign, you might be feeling this pile up in Virgo and Pisces quite a bit more than other
Yeah.
people because the transits are in the angles of your chart. Remember, I talked about the angularity earlier.
Yes. Oh man, it's so weird. I'm It's so crazy, dude. I just started going forward and looking at all the shit is just so crazy. I mean, it's a good time to be alive. It's also just like so nuts. I love astrology so much, man. I'm just so glad I found it and I found people like you who can teach me about it in a way that's understandable. And I know, I mean, that was my goal with these conversations, and we're only on number 2. I know that I'm learning from this, that other people are. And like, I think if we all have a better understanding of this, we can do exactly what you just spoke about in relation to our natal charts and what's going on energetically. Like that's the name of the game right now. I feel like until Saturn moves into Aquarius next year.
Yeah, so Saturn will peak into Aquarius, and then it will go retrograde.
Yeah, I'm just noticing that. What the
Um,
fuck, Saturn? What are you doing?
yeah, in the second degree. So at 1 degrees and some degree minutes, it will turn retrograde, and then it will come back into Capricorn, and then once in December, it will move into Aquarius. What we would say is for good. Really, what we mean is until the 29 years when it comes back to Aquarius. But so starting in December, Saturn will not enter Capricorn again. And it's just the nature of retrogradation. And it'll be a time where people will get to return to their Saturn and Capricorn story. And you might get you will get a few more months to resolve whatever those issues were, to say
Mm.
goodbye to that energy. And then, yeah, it'll be on to the next story. And I found these Saturn ingresses to be quite powerful. I mean, they're very, very tangible. So Saturn ingressed into Capricorn December 2017, the day I believe after Bitcoin topped at 19,000,
Oh,
whatever it
interesting.
was,
Yeah,
and
almost.
immediately, yeah, it was tangible. I mean, my life, I was in Thailand. I moved back to Austin for a few months, and like, I mean, it was so stark. Like the week before, I was in Thailand,
Yeah,
and then the week after, I was back in like basically my family's home.
you were
And so
rich as shit probably, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm not as rich as I thought I was.
that's not too far off.
I get it, man. It happened to me too.
Yeah.
So interesting, dude. This has been such a great talk. Is there anything else we should be acutely aware of before we speak again in 28 days or so?
Um, so yeah, we talked about Saturn going direct. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then I think that no, just the other big theme is just the Libra season, right? The
Right.
masculinity that's coming. I will say this: Venus is going to be in her domicile of Libra, and so we are going to get a strong injection of that Venusian, that kind of active Venus.
I like it.
Um, yeah, and even though there's these problems because she's right in the mix of the Saturn Mars square, I think there is an opportunity to get active with your creative energy. And like I would say, if you make tangible art, now might be the time. If you're painting, if you're writing, if you're anything where it requires action on your part to produce artistic objects, I would just take advantage of this opportunity because it's going to be the best time, maybe in a few months. So look
Is
out for that.
is Venus Aphrodite?
Venus is Aphrodite.
So we got Hermes and Aphrodite together in Libra for a while this month.
Yeah, for about a week, and then the sun will join. Sol
And then
will
Moon
join.
comes too towards the end of the month. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have a new moon in Libra. That's the
This
next lunation.
Yeah, everything is good. Shit's awesome. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks a lot for having me, Noah. And yeah, I love that. It's all good, man. Enjoy. I love that word.
Yeah.
Enjoy. It's the best verb sentence that you can say to people using that imperative form. Enjoy.
I
It's like a
totally
direct.
agree. I love it. Dude, we'll talk soon.
Okay. Peace.
Thanks for listening to that episode. Go check out SJ on Twitter. Very easy to find. Should I actually give his handle? Should I not be a schmucko? Should I actually give you his handle? Give me a second. I'm gonna do it. Where is he? SJ Anderson 144. Got it. I'll remember that from now on. So go check him out. I mean, you'd find him anyway. Just he drops the wisdom on a daily basis with all this stuff, and it's incredible. So go check him out. Rate and review this podcast. If you're into astrology and want to learn it, I feel like maybe in a couple of weeks, I will start offering to read people's charts for free, of course, just like I did the tarot. I can't make any promises. Astrology is much more, there's a lot more technical components to it. Tarot is why I love tarot so much. It's just intuitive. It's just like when you click into that and understand kind of the alchemical symbols of what you're seeing, it's very easy. Where it's starting to click for me with astrology, as you probably heard in this episode, is I'm getting the energies behind the planets and what the houses represent and what the signs represent energetically. And that for me is kind of the into the door of understanding it. So as I continue to like open that door a little bit more and eventually walk through it, then I'll be able to be like, all right, I really get astrology. But until then, I find it just so helpful. And I recommend this for everyone. Like, do readings for your friends and family. That's what I was doing. I don't know. I recognize the planets now. I recognize signs, but yeah, that's all I'm doing. So anyway, there's a lot of episodes this week. It came up, full moon energy, something going on. Next week we'll probably have not as many episodes. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. That's it. Happy imagining. Enjoy your life. Bye-bye.